The containment field flickered and died with a sound like breaking glass. Maria's hand froze over the emergency protocol panel, her dark eyes widening as she watched the massive creature unfold itself from the cramped holding cell. The Zartesh predator, all 12 feet of scaled muscle, serrated claws, and intelligent rage, rose to its full height in the research bay of the Frontier Dawn. "Carlos, we have a problem," Maria whispered into her comm, backing slowly toward the secondary exit. Her voice remained steady despite her racing heart, years of xenobiology training keeping panic at bay. The predator's 6 eyes locked onto her, each pupil contracting to razor-thin slits, its mandibles spread wide, revealing rows of crystalline teeth that could shear through hull plating. The creature had been captured from Zartesh Prime 3 weeks ago, a specimen for study, a window into one of the galaxy's most efficient apex predators. Now it was free, and Maria was alone with it in a room that suddenly felt far too small. "I'm in the nursery wing," Carlos's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Maria, the cubs, get out of there," Maria shouted, forgetting her precarious situation. The Zartesh were known for their maternal, or in this case paternal, aggression. The research team had separated the adult from its 3 cubs for safety during transport. If Carlos was near those cubs when the parent realized where they were, the predator's head snapped toward the comm unit, its hearing far more acute than any human's. It released a sound that was part shriek, part subsonic rumble, a call that made the metal walls vibrate. From somewhere deeper in the ship, 3 smaller voices answered. The creature moved. Maria had studied Zartesh locomotion for months, had watched countless hours of footage, but nothing prepared her for the reality of it. The predator flowed like liquid violence, covering the distance to the door in 2 bounds. Its claws carved gouges in the reinforced floor plating. The door, designed to contain specimens, crumpled like paper under its assault. Maria ran. The ship's corridors became a maze of terror as alarms blared and emergency lights painted everything in strobing red. Behind her, she could hear the predator's claws scrabbling on metal, its huffing breath the crash of equipment as it pursued. It wasn't chasing her to kill. She realized that with sudden clarity. It was following the sound of its cubs. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with Carlos. He stood in the doorway of the nursery, his broad shoulders blocking the entrance, a plasma cutter held defensively in his trembling hands. Behind him, Maria could hear the chirping cries of the Zartesh cubs. "Move!" Maria grabbed his arm, trying to pull him aside. "I can't," Carlos said, his jaw set with determination. "If I let it in there angry, it might hurt them accidentally. You know how Zartesh get when they're in combat mode. They don't distinguish between threat and offspring until they calm down." The predator rounded the corner, and time seemed to slow. Its eyes found Carlos, found the weapon in his hands, and its body coiled like a spring. Maria saw death in that moment, saw the creature's claws flexing, saw the calculation in its alien intelligence. Then Carlos did something that would be debated in xenopsychology journals for years to come. He dropped the plasma cutter. The weapon clattered to the floor, and Carlos slowly, deliberately raised his empty hands. "Easy," he said softly, his voice carrying none of the fear Maria knew he must feel. "Easy now. Your babies are safe." The predator froze, its head tilting in what might have been confusion. Carlos took a careful step backward, then another, clearing the doorway but not fleeing. He kept his eyes on the creature, not challenging, not submissive, but meeting it as one intelligent being to another. "Maria," he said quietly, "open the nursery partition." She didn't hesitate. Her fingers flew over the control panel, and the transparent aluminum barrier separating the nursery observation area from the main room slid open. 3 small Zartesh cubs, each about the size of a large dog, tumbled out. Their scales were still soft, their eyes bright with curiosity rather than menace. They saw their parent and released a chorus of excited chirps, scrambling toward the adult with the clumsy enthusiasm of young everywhere. The transformation was instantaneous. The rigid combat posture melted away as the predator dropped to all 6 limbs, its mandibles closing into what Maria recognized from her research as a nurturing configuration. The cubs swarmed over their parent, and the creature that had torn through reinforced doors moments ago now rumbled with a sound that was unmistakably affectionate. Carlos remained motionless, barely breathing. The adult Zartesh's eyes found him again, and for a long moment the two regarded each other. Then the predator did something unprecedented in all recorded Zartesh behavior. It lowered its head, a gesture of acknowledgement, perhaps even respect. Maria's hand shook as she activated her research recorder, capturing every second. The galaxy knew humans as the persistent ones, the stubborn ones, the species that had clawed their way to the stars through determination and innovation. But this was something else. This was the moment when a human looked at the most dangerous predator in known space and saw not a monster, but a parent. Carlos slowly crouched down, making himself smaller, less threatening. One of the cubs, braver or more curious than its siblings, approached him. It stretched out its neck, sniffing at his extended hand. Carlos didn't move, didn't flinch when tiny claws pricked his palm. The adult watched but did not intervene. "Your babies are beautiful," Carlos whispered. "We never meant to separate you. We wanted to understand." Whether the predator understood his words or simply his tone, Maria would never know. But the creature gathered its cubs with gentle sweeps of its tail and moved past Carlos without aggression. It paused at the corridor junction, looked back once, and then disappeared into the ship's depths with its offspring. Later, after they'd set down on a habitable moon and opened the cargo bay doors, after they'd watched the Zartesh family vanish into the alien forest, Carlos turned to Maria with a tired smile. "Command is going to have our heads for this," he said. Maria laughed, thinking of the footage in her recorder, of the moment when understanding had bridged the gap between species. "Maybe," she agreed. "But I think we just learned something more valuable than any research data." "What's that?" "That humanity's real strength isn't in our weapons or our ships." Maria watched the forest where the predators had gone. "It's in our ability to see beyond our fear, to recognize what matters most, even to something that could kill us without a second thought." Carlos nodded, and together they stood at the edge of the unknown, two humans who had faced the galaxy's perfect predator and found common ground in the universal language of family and trust. The end.